Hi, everyone. This is Lourdes Turrecha, founder of the Rise of Privacy Tech, or TROPT, as we like to abbreviate, and you'll hear all throughout this episode. This is the TROPT Webcast. I'm your host, and today I'm really excited to welcome another privacy tech builder and founder, and I'm very excited because they were very much involved in the TROPT Privacy Tech Stack review program that we've been sharing with you the past few weeks through, the white paper that we just published and through the tech stack page that we just released and launched simultaneously. And so today I welcome Mark Levell, who is the founder and CEO of Forethought Marketing, which has built 4Comply, one of the products that we feature in the TROPT Privacy Tech Stack and has been reviewed by one of our bona fide privacy tech buyers in our network. Welcome to the webcast, Mark, and thank you for making the time. I'm really excited to talk to you and get to know more about you.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here. I've enjoyed working both on the white paper framework, not working on it, but working with it, and really enjoyed the final result as well. Excited to be here.
Oh, lovely. That's good to hear. And likewise, I enjoyed, sitting in. I was a fly on the wall, sitting in on the review call that our buyer had with you guys. So that was a really very much enlightening for me as well. It's been years since I've been an actual buyer, so it's nice to know what buyers today are asking vendors. Well, with that, I know I've known a little bit of you because we've talked a couple of times in the past, and I always like to research folks in my network, especially in the privacy tech space. But for those who don't know you yet in our network, in our community, and who are listening in, I would love for us to start by you sharing us how you ended up building in this privacy tech space. So your privacy tech origin story, where did that start, Mark?
I remember a specific Friday night. So going back in 2016, 2017, I had a problem. My customers were slowing or stopping sometimes their normal marketing development projects with us because suddenly they had a higher priority. And that priority was, how do I comply with GDPR? This thing's coming. It's been passed now. What do I do? How do I do it? How do I implement this? And at first I resisted. This isn't a marketing problem, is it? But when our customers went to their legal department, the best legal departments would come back with, we can tell you what to do or how to do it. And an awful lot of legal departments didn't even know how to come back and be able to tell them what to do. And I was explaining, this goes to the Friday night, I was explaining this problem to a CMO friend of mine. And I was, talking through this problem I had. And he stopped me in the middle. And he said, Mark, he said, listen to your customers. And I said, oh, yeah, I am. Da, 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 da. He goes, no, Mark, listen to your customers. And I went, oh, how many times have we been told that problems are opportunities? Absolutely. And I had completely missed it until that moment. The rest of that weekend, I kid you not, I spent like 16 or 18 hours reading up on GDPR, every single thing I could find to read about it, the law itself. And we created a custom solution for 2 to 3 customers because, we didn't know how well it would work or what we might have missed. But that worked. It worked pretty well. We did miss something huge. We missed the fact in our first implementations that attorneys interpret the law differently. Mm-hmm. And they sometimes even change their mind. So we realized after, when customers 4, 5, and 6 started coming to us that we needed to productize this. We built in a product with that legal interpretation. Our first version came out in 2018. And we haven't looked back since.
Oh, wow. I love that story. It's another testament to how global data protection laws like the EU's GDPR has fueled this emerging privacy tech space. The New York Times wrote a whole article on that a couple of years ago, and it sounds like this is exactly kind of like the journey that you guys had a few years ago listening to your customers. And so that's the second point I want to highlight. It's one of those challenges that we reported on in the white paper. Many buyers feel like they're not being heard when it comes to the privacy tech products that they want out there, and the pain points that they need solved. So I love that you guys are going back to basics in startup land, right? Like, it's not just in privacy tech, but in startup 101, listen to your customers, find the problems, and solve those problems for your customers, and then they'll pay you for.
Yeah, have you heard the statement in construction: measure twice, cut once? I like the statement: listen twice, 5 times, 10 times, and develop once. Right. Because in exactly the same way, it's really easy to get things wrong, to get them misaligned.
Oh, I love that. And you're right. Like, there could be changes in how your customers interpret things, or the nuances of certain features, based on, depending on how lawyers interpret things. So I love that what you said, which is listen 10 times, because then you'll start to understand get the consensus, right? As opposed to just sticking to building for one customer. I love that. I know that you guys have been grinding for years. And so as a founder and a builder, I'd love to hear your unique perspective on what are some of the big challenges in the privacy tech space. It's such a nascent industry, and we've heard the buyers, we've heard some other founders and builders share their challenges too. But I'd love to hear about you, because privacy is cross-functional, and you have this marketing background, and it's time to hear from every perspective, every part of this cross-functional space. We've heard from lawyers and engineers and CISOs. I'd love to hear the marketing perspective that you have as a founder in the marketing for privacy category.
Sure. So I think it depends on whether you're talking about corporate, the corporate space, or the software vendor space. So within the corporate space, cross-departmental adoption, caused by a lack of cross-departmental alignment, is huge. For most departments, privacy is someone else's problem. This push, if you're a VP of sales, it's clearly not your problem. It's somebody else. If you run an ERP, or you're a CFO, have an accounting system running a couple layers under you, it's somebody else's problem. So these departments have no understanding of privacy and feel it's not their responsibility. Meanwhile, the legal department, and to a lesser extent the IT department, they don't understand what the department's needs are. And so, like, from a marketing perspective, you need to interleave the marketing department's needs with the privacy needs, the privacy requirements. And if you don't do that, legal will kind of shut down marketing and saying, hey, just don't send anything to anybody and it'll be very private. Obviously, that doesn't work. So, that cross-departmental capability, that cross-departmental communication, as I think you've said in some of your seminars, we need to push that really much more across the organization, make it much more ubiquitous knowledge. In the marketing framework, you talk about shifting left, and this is where software vendor, the second portion, comes into place. Legal and data privacy officers have even less influence over software vendors. And so if we want to get privacy built into application software, marketing software, ERP software, and even to go deeper than that, eventually into databases, we need to have IT people and the departments that buy this stuff understand the importance of privacy. Then we can, until then, right now, the software development stage, the shifting left from the data lifecycle stage to the software development stage is kind of blocked. And so, and then there's another challenge too. I got a third one here while we're talking. And that is, I think a lot of companies think they know something, but really don't. They miss at the realization level. Maybe if you asked them, they wouldn't agree with me here, but at the realization level, they miss that every business relationship is built on trust. And privacy is trust. So if during the marketing stage or the sales stage or the support stage, you violate someone's privacy, what I consider a human right, that person will have a natural resistance to buy from you, from that company, for a long time. And some companies understand this. Apple is a good example, in my opinion. I buy from them partially for that reason. Some companies don't understand this. Facebook and the whole Cambridge Analytica thing and multiple situations since then. I really feel that every company needs to understand that privacy and trust are the basis of business, nothing less. So those are all challenges.
No, I couldn't agree with you more on that. And as a former buyer, that's something that I have taken into account, right? I mean, leading up to GDPR, we had numerous privacy tech vendors reach out for demos. And to be honest, the ones that breached my trust because they had terrible privacy and security practices were were vendors that I just never responded to ever again. I mean, This is the privacy space. And so if you want to, sell me something, a privacy tech solution, you need to walk the walk in that regard. And so it's very refreshing and I know I'm not the only one from our events, from the monthly networking sessions that we have at TROPT and the meetings that we have with our privacy tech visionaries, which are some of the leading CPOs and privacy thinkers in the world. I mean, they've shared a similar sentiment. Like, they don't, like, if you're going to pitch a CPO or a privacy leader, a privacy engineer, you better walk the walk when it comes to privacy and security.
And I think it's true for every company. It's true for every company selling anything.
Yes,
I mean, just don't
especially in this space. Yeah.
No, I agree with you, especially.
Especially in this space, because your target customers are highly sensitive when it comes to these things. I'm curious, like, let's talk more about 4Comply, which is the product that, I guess let's start there. What is 4Comply, and what are some of the privacy pain points that 4Comply solves? I love to share with the audience the feature, what you guys are doing. And obviously they can also look you guys up in our tech stack, but let's hear it straight from you.
Sure. So 4Comply is a tool designed to ease the life of marketers, IT departments, legal departments that need to comply with all the various dozens and dozens of laws that are now existing in the area of privacy compliance. In terms of pain points, I'd say there's really three. There's a marketing pain point, an IT pain point, and a legal department pain point. There's actually more than this, but if I go crazy, we'll be here all night. So it's obvious, but marketing departments need to market, and companies need marketing departments to market. And ours are typically larger companies, multi-billions of revenue. They typically need to comply with somewhere between 10 to 30 laws, sometimes more, sometimes less.
More.
In many cases more. And so we solve the consent, the consent collection, the consent distribution, and the compliance problem while maximizing marketing's ability to market. And that's huge, because a lot of products out there, they are good at complying with the law, but they're not good at help marketers market. Right. And so I talked earlier about this need to interweave the departmental needs with the privacy compliance needs. That's the marketing department's pain point is, hey, I need to be able to continue to market to the maximum degree legal, please. And then from an IT pain point perspective, having a bunch of people running around collecting and deleting data in the 30 to 60 different systems your average billion-dollar company has just isn't reasonable when somebody sends in a data subject access request. Even tracking them on spreadsheets isn't fun. So being able to
it's inaccurate as soon as you collect the information.
That's right. That's exactly right. And so being able to have that information customer visible, collected, logged in, tracked, identity checked, and then automatically enable these systems to delete what needs to be deleted or to collect what needs to be collected, port what needs to be ported, doing all of that without having somebody manually intervene or do the whole thing is huge. Simultaneously, we have something in 4Comply called human in the loop, HIDL. And one of the problems is that when you automate everything, then there's no room for human intervention. And so let's say you have a system out there, and many companies will have many sometimes for a while that they haven't had time to integrate yet. Well, if you can put a human in the loop that says, hey, you need to do this task, and then leave the rest of it automated, now you've got this melding of human tasks and computer tasks all working together to solve the privacy compliance problem. And then finally, legal departments need evidence. They need proof. If a data privacy authority or even an individual comes after them, it can't be a Salesforce or a Marketo or an Eloqua transaction log. No judge or non-technical human can understand those. It needs to be phrased in a legally understandable manner. And so we have a legal history vault that solves that pain point, provides attorneys with evidence that, hey, they said this is how we interpreted it, this is why our legal interpretation says that, and then has that complete log for any email you put in. So the 3 pain points are marketers need to market, IT needs to not run around and do a million tasks, and legal departments need evidence. Those are the 3 pain points that I think we hit on most.
I love the focus that you put into marketing pain points. And I say that because it brings to mind Dr. Ann Cavoukian's 7 privacy by design principles. And one of them is, it can't be zero sum. We can't have false trade-offs between marketing and privacy and security. We get to have both. We get to have functionality while going for privacy. So this is one of those areas where that companies are going to want to market and need to market to do business. And, the way to do it is by building in privacy. And it sounds like you guys have brought those pain points together, the legal and the marketing pain points, and then obviously the back end scalability, IT pain points. But I love the focus on highlighting like you can have marketing and privacy together. So kudos.
Scalability is actually a huge challenge too. We've had to be able to handle up to 80 million contacts tracking consent for. And for some of our largest customers, and most customers are in the hundreds of thousands or low millions. Yeah, so scalability is a fun challenge.
Yeah, I guess I'd love to hear more from you about, like, one of the things that came up in the white paper is, again, listening to customers, right? But I'm curious, like, how do you guys ensure that you are listening to customers? Like, break it down for us, because it seems to be an area where buyers don't think, it's one of those challenges. I'm curious, do you have regular, I don't know, is it surveys? Do you have regular customer and prospect calls? How do you ensure that as you build, you're building and you're aligned to, per Ray Everett, who's also one of our visionaries, you're aligned to your buyers' day-to-day realities?
So we have both formal and informal processes. The formal processes are whenever we do an implementation, we automatically schedule 30, 90, and 120-day reviews. And those are, the day that thing goes live, that 30, 90, and 120 days is scheduled. And so that kind of forces us to come back and not just put in our software and walk away, but to see how it's working, to listen to that feedback. We also have something called an executive sponsor program. Every customer of ours, not the person who's doing the actual implementation of 4Comply, but their boss or their boss's boss has a relationship with an executive here at Forethought Marketing. And then we schedule, depends on the customer, but sometimes it's 60, sometimes it's 90-day conversations. And we have a, when we set these up, we say, hey, we understand you're busy. We're also busy. We both have the right to cancel if we want to, or move it. But let's keep these going between us to make sure that. And so those executive conversations are wonderful. They're not formal. You don't have everybody in the room. You can talk a little more turkey, if you know what I'm saying.
Right.
And then
how does that feedback go back to the engineering product, the product teams who are building, to ensure that, what's that look like in the back end?
It's really simple. We keep a list of all of those. We use, I think it's GitLab, it's called, to just track all of the possible features that we can conceive of. Some of them we put in the short-term hopper because, people are yelling loud and hard for them. Some of them are put in the more visionary hopper. And whenever we come up with a release, we look at what time frame we expect the cycle to last for, and we go through them and not only are the developers and product managers in there, but the people, the executives who have spoken to the customers and the PMs who have done the implementations are in those meetings. And so, people will say, no, I was talking to so-and-so and they really said such and such was important and we need to get that in.
Right.
And then there's another element too here. This may sound, but we also give our customers for what I would call more arcane features, more unusual features, one which we haven't heard from multiple other customers. We give our customers the opportunity to have us develop that for them and then move it as a configuration option into the product. So if somebody wants the product to pop up every morning and sing, Yankee Doodle Dandy for some reason, we can put that into the product. We can do that on a paid basis. But then we put a configuration option in the setup. So not everybody necessarily has that option. It's a silly option, but sometimes some of the options are unusual enough. And then what's fun is we'll come back, we'll be having a sales conversation 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 years later. And the customer will go, hey, do you do such and such? And we'll go, oh yeah, actually we do. And it'll be that feature that we put in for that customer on a paid basis 3 years ago. So all of those feed into the product and into a standardized product.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for going through that. Before we start the lightning round set of questions, I have one last in this, preliminary set, and I'd love to hear more about the advice that you would give to new privacy tech founders who are coming in. I'm curious, you have quite a few years ahead of them. You've been building since before GDPR, leading up to it. And per Crunchbase, as we reported in our white paper, there are now, I think, 1,200 roughly privacy tech startups. And I'm curious, based on what you've learned breaking into the privacy space and now being in this space, because you've been building in this space, what are some of the pitfalls that you could probably help them out avoid based on your experience?
Seeing as how you're suggesting I talk to my competitors, my advice would obviously be don't get into the market. No, okay. I kid.
That's fair.
No, I think some of the best entrepreneurial advice I've ever gotten is I got long before the book came out, but is exemplified in a book entitled Blue Ocean Strategy, I think it is. And basically what it says is go where your competition is not. Okay, there's in this book, there's red oceans and blue oceans, and a red ocean is one with a space with lots of competitors. Privacy is a huge market. There's lots of areas and niches and sub-niches in different areas. If you're going to get into this space,
right, just look at our tech stack.
Look at all the players there. Look at their core competencies. Don't get fooled by all the marketing fluff around their core competencies. Look at their core competencies and avoid those core competencies and go to your own blue ocean. And that's then you get that little piece of the ocean. You own that little piece of the ocean. And like in our case, marketing departments, $1 billion plus companies, that's our particular blue ocean. But maybe for another entrepreneur, it's particularly small companies, or maybe it's a vertical niche. Maybe needs to be done for government, or it needs to be done for education or healthcare, all of which have their own privacy subtleties that need to be considered.
Thank you. That's excellent advice, and you're absolutely right. There's, people think that the privacy tech space is, I mean, it is crowded to a certain extent, but it's really only a few categories are crowded. There's so much white space in this. And if you look at the TROPT Privacy Tech Stack, there's so much white space, especially in the development lifecycle, but even under the data lifecycle part of it. And then obviously you go to B2C, which is still catching up on B2B. So excellent advice overall. Are you game to play a quick round of lightning questions?
I saw that in your email. I don't know what it means, but I'll be willing to try it.
Just hit the quick questions before we start to wrap up.
Give me your best shot.
All right, awesome. What one privacy tech product do you wish exists that doesn't today?
I think a code base for cloud software developers that you could buy, incorporate into your own, or maybe even at the database level, something along that line. This isn't for my personal use. This is for the industry as a whole.
Yeah,
moving.
Absolutely.
It's for the ultimately necessary shifting left that we've talked about before.
Yep, and you're not the only one, and we might even have certain startups out there building that right now. But yes, a privacy code base is one of those things. When you think about the future of this industry, the emerging privacy tech industry, you feel hope or cynicism? Pick one.
Oh gosh, I don't know that I can pick one of those. I feel both.
That's okay. That's fine.
I think I'll go with hope, and the reason I'll go with hope is because
you are a founder in this space. You have to be hopeful.
Well, no, it's not. I'm thinking more about the personal execution of the results, the actual results. You know, the degree to which 10 years today an individual's privacy is actually respected. Right. Not pseudo respected, not sort of respected to the degree, but truly it becomes a human right. I take a lot of optimism in the fact that GDPR is a great stake in the ground. A lot of countries are following it, and so I have hope that privacy will continue to evolve as a human right. I'm optimistic in that sense. It may be slow, it may take a while, but I'm optimistic.
Right, and to more products that are built that way, right, in this space.
Right.
What is one consumer privacy tech tool that you use? And you don't have to name brands, you can just describe a category. I mean, what's one privacy tech tool that you use as a consumer?
Oh gosh. So there's a ironically they got the URL privacy.com. There's a company that puts out credit cards that can be for single use or limited use.
Yeah.
And I absolutely love that because every time I sign up for a subscription, I use a credit card that is limited to $12 a year if that's the subscription amount. And I just sign up and it resubmits on that credit card. If I ever want to cancel that subscription, I don't have to worry about some vendor having a dark pattern that I can't get through. I just cancel the credit card and they're not getting paid anymore. So I like that. I call that a privacy tool and I love it.
Same thing, big fan of privacy.com. I believe it was Andy Roth, who's now retired, CPO of Intuit, who was a co-founder of privacy.com. So shout out to Andy if he's listening. What is one... Okay, so let's say there's a metaphorical billboard out there that, I don't know, millions or billions of people can read. What is one privacy message you'd like to impart to them? I mean, as a marketer, this should be an exciting.
Well, you see, now here again, I want to put my product name on that billboard.
Of course, aside from your product.
You did ask.
4Comply, setting aside 4Comply, what is one privacy?
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. This is something I'd have to work on from a wording perspective, but it comes back to privacy is trust. Trust is the basis of business. I feel that if everybody, even consumers, so that they demanded it more, and vendors, so that they would deliver it more, I just think the world would be a better place. I mean, it would be better for the vendors. It would be better for the consumers. Everybody would benefit. And so like I said, I need to word it, but something that conveys that business is based on trust, and trust is privacy.
I'm gonna have to pick that as my favorite takeaway from this conversation. Privacy is trust. I couldn't, agree more with that. And I've always said trust in information relationships is important, but like you were saying, trust is important for businesses. So thank you for sharing that message with everyone who's listening, Mark. Before we start to wrap up, I'd love to give you an opportunity to share any calls to action that you might have. Share where you'd like to be found if you want to be found online. That's your choice, or where they can find 4Comply or 4 Marketing.
Sure. So our website for 4Comply is www.4comply.io. I don't know do I need to say the www anymore these days? I don't know. And you can also find me, Mark Levell. You can find me, Mark Levell, on LinkedIn. I'd be happy to connect up with anybody in the privacy or marketing space. And we'd be happy to talk to you if you have some problems that are along the lines of what we've spoken of, or even custom, especially related to marketing. We'd be happy to help.
I will second that. Check out 4Comply. We featured them in the TROPT Privacy Tech Stack. You can see them there on this URL link on the page, riseofprivacytech.com//TROPT Privacy Tech Stack. They are also in our white paper, which the URL is on the screen as well. Mark, thank you for sharing your time with us today and with the audience. I am, I'm glad to get to know you better. And like I said, I feel like I kept saying I couldn't agree with you more when you started talking about how you thought about privacy and
great minds think alike.
I'd like to think that. Thank you for joining us today, and take care.
Thank you too.